We're in today with this i7 7th gen. We're gonna see how this 4 cores and 8 thread CPU is running with this 2018 RTX 2080 Ti with 4352 shaders, 11 gig of GDDR6, 352 bits bus width, and we're gonna put the system on 4K. I'm gonna see how it's going to handle with and without DLSS. Let's jump in a couple of games and see who is going to bottleneck first. Let's start with Red Dead Redemption and see how the GPU is holding here. I put everything on in the game on maximum as a preset, and at the end of the settings here I have DLSS off with TAA and FXA on maximum with MSAAA on 8x. Can we get better FPS? I mean, in this situation you can actually see that the GPU is bananas. So with this occasion, you can actually see that the CPU has no problem. 10.3 gig of system RAM utilized. The cores are not even loaded, you know. So I think it's possible to say that in some cases you are bottlenecking with the GPU, not with the CPU. Kind of impressive, you know, the sight and everything in the game. It looks fantastic, but in this situation, yeah, the CPU is not the problem. The CPU is barely using 20 watts in this case because it's not being utilized. But you need to understand that this is not the way. I'm guessing based on one thing I know from GTA 5 that it's creating a lot of problems, and I want to disable it. I want to see if that is something that MSAAA, this one. Sometimes that one in GTA 5 it's a mess. Look at that, 30 FPS, flawless. I'm actually curious to see on the CPU side, even if it's small, because the resolution is the problem. I want to see if the threads are creating any problems. There's no problem on the CPU side. In this situation, I will say DLSS will be a cool option to go for, because with 30 FPS, I'm not saying it's not okay, but it's not playable. I want to play with high FPS, at least 60 FPS with a 2080 Ti. Come on, it's not a game that was released yesterday. I'm gonna put DLSS, ultra performance, and sharpening a little lower. Yeah. So with DLSS on ultra performance, we are getting 60 FPS. So it's actually looking really good, and it's working really well. You know, the CPU, it's 80-90% load on the threads. So there's a couple of threads that are maxed out, and yeah, I like the performance. I really like the performance, how it's holding. Seriously, look at this. Let me put it back on maximum. See that this is the right deal. With maximum details, with DLSS, we are getting a steady 60 FPS, 36 on minimals and 48 on 1%. I will call this a win, you know, so the CPU is doing the job. It's like, it's on the edge, the CPU, I'm not gonna lie. It's on the edge. Let's continue with Starfield and see how it's running with maximum details without any upscale on 4K. I think it's gonna be interesting. I won't play like this because it's very laggy, even though I wish I can have this quality with high FPS. But regardless, 3 minimals, 15 FPS on average with 6.2 gig of VRAM utilized, 99% load on the core on the 2080 Ti, 260 watts consumption, and the CPU only got 25 watts consumption with 40-50% load on the CPU. I mean, let me see, take a look on the CPU. There's no threads that are maxed out, so yeah, it's okay. Upscaling, DLSS, ultra performance. With maximum quality, with DLSS on ultra performance, the game looks fantastic. It gives me like between 50 and 60 FPS on average. In this situation, you can actually see the CPU 50-60% loaded. It's a different type of load on the CPU. Well, actually, in the cockpit was different. But here, it's working even the CPU with maximum load on the cores and the threads. And I want to see, yeah, look at that. Maximum load on threads and on the cores. With DLSS on ultra performance, we're getting 63 FPS on average, 28 on minimal. Wow, 48 1%, barely 6 gig, under 6 gig of VRAM utilization, 99% load on the GPU core with 260 watts consumption, around 260. 250 now because I put DLSS. 12.4 gig of system RAM. That's not bad, you know, we got 32, but you need to realize that now that DLSS is activated, CPU is working and is working really hard now. 60-70% load. Great performance overall. I like how it's working, seriously. Let's jump into Cyberpunk and see how it's running on 4K with, I think it's Ray Tracing Overdrive, DLSS off, no Fidelity FX, everything. Every upscale, it's off. If I want to load the GPU, I know the game that can do it. On Ray Tracing Overdrive, apparently, we are butchering the video card. Even the police doesn't know how to go. You knob. The GPU in this game is maxed out. 10.7 gig of VRAM, 100% load on the core, 270 watts consumption, 67 degrees, 68 degrees. I mean, the GPU is mega loaded. And on the CPU side, we're getting what, 20-30% load? Not even, with 14 gig of system RAM. I cannot walk, seriously, look at this. Oh, ooh, yoy, ow, ooh. But it looks fantastic. Even the trash looks good in this game. We decided that the game looks fantastic, yeah? Looks like a PowerPoint presentation, but ultra performance, 0.2 sharpness. This is good, this is bad, what do you think? And it looks fantastic, seriously. You plonkers. I mean... What the f was that? So on maximum details with overdrive ray tracing with DLSS on ultra performance, apparently we're getting 30 FPS. You know, it's very interesting to see this DLSS, how it's boosting up the FPS on maximum quality. Seriously. The game looks fantastic, the lights, the details are awesome, you know, so overall it's doing a fantastic work, but we need to distress this in order to see if we can make the game playable, yes? So in the quality, I will say, not overdrive, I'm gonna put it on ultra here, yes? And ultra performance. We are getting 6 to 30 on minimals, now it's 6, but it was 30 on minimals, with 37 on 1%. And I would like to say it's a fantastic quality. It looks good, it runs good, and on the GPU side, we're only using 7.2 gig of VRAM, 97% load on the core. It's looking really nice. 260 watts consumption, 11.3 gig of system RAM, and in this occasion, even the CPU is doing the job. Want to see the threads? Yeah, the threads and the cores are maxed out. So in this situation, can I say DLSS did a fantastic job and managed to rescue the CPU. With DLSS activated, the CPU and the GPU, they are doing a fantastic job on delivering on maximum quality, nearly 60 FPS. So you can adjust it from here, put DLSS maybe, you know, and distress the GPU in such a way until the balance between the CPU and the GPU is reached, and you get the FPS that you want. Let's jump into Fortnite and see how it's running on 4K with Epic, and analyzing super resolution, well, it's off, and then we're gonna see how it's running with DLSS activated. 28 FPS, 30 FPS actually. It's a very surprising quality in the game, you know, but the FPS is not with us. 30 FPS, 14 on minimal, and 22 on 1%. The GPU core is maxed out in this situation, and I can tell you that this is not the right experience, you know. 8.3 gig of VRAM utilized here, 260 watts consumption, and I can say that the CPU it's on what, on 60% loaded. That's actually a decent performance from this CPU. All right, let's put DLSS and see maybe we can actually fix this. fast as possible until I zing DLSS performance. Apply it. Okay, so on the ground with DLSS, we notice that's getting better FPS now. Not that horrible. Getting like 49 FPS on average, 18 on minimars, and 27 on 1%. 7.5 gig of VRAM used here. Not the best, not the worst, but it's doing something now. Okay, so I have epic details, yes, with DLSS on performance. Maybe we can put it on, let's say, on low details. How does this perform? On low details, apparently, with DLSS, it's an interesting performance. It looks kind of fantastic on the quality here, you know? So in this situation, I think this is a viable option. Now let's see how much we're averaging. 100 FPS, 43 minimals, 74 on 1%, and 5.5 gig of VRAM utilized, 80% load on the core. The wattage in this situation, it's less than 200, and that's good. 13.8 gig of system RAM. Actually, the system is doing fantastic. This is the solution, you know, so low details, ray tracing with low details, and DLSS, and the GPU can actually do the job. I will take this option with DirectX 12 because this is only happening in DirectX 12. Can't imagine Fortnite being like this with 2080 Ti. I'm shocked. I'm really shocked how it works. Let's jump into God of War and take a look and see how the game is performing with this combination. Everything turned off, DLSS and FSR, and I'm on maximum details in the game. In this case, you can actually see only 50 FPS on average with maximum details, 35 minimals and 41 on 1%. I like it. I really like it. Seriously. I think this is the right system for this game, seriously. Because this i7 with this RTX 2080 Ti, it's actually pushing the game really nice. And I like it. I like how it looks. I like how it's performing. Everything about this is fantastic. Maximum core load. The VRAM is not fully loaded. You can actually see the details are fantastic, but I want to see it with DLSS, you know. It's there's no problem with the CPU, there's no problem with the GPU. Apparently they are both utilized properly. 12.7 gig of system RAM. It's actually using the CPU and system RAM properly. Do you think it's worth putting DLSS? This is just a question, you know, because if I have 50, 60 FPS around this, I will take it like this, you know, because it feels very smooth, you know. Go into DLSS and put ultra performance. With DLSS, apparently I can see some artifacts around the character, you know, the beard and stuff like that, but it's giving me 70 FPS. So ideal will be here to put DLSS and 60 FPS with DLSS on ultra performance. The CPU is, look at that, 95% load on the CPU. Well, you turn the balance on the CPU and the GPU is getting distressed. So with DLSS, it's pushing the CPU on the bottleneck. Let's take a look. Oh yeah, look at that. The threads and the cores are maxed out. In this case, I have to put DLSS in balance or something. I'll put it on balance and that's it. All right, 60 FPS. See, now it's 70% both of them, nearly 70% both of them. With balance, apparently, you're gonna get the right FPS here. So 4K with 2080 Ti in God of War on balance. Maximum details is kind of fantastic, seriously. 7.1 gig of VRAM. Ooh. Hogwarts Legacy. Let's see how it's running with maximum details without DLSS. It's gonna be very interesting, you know. This is my favorite spot here. Apparently it's lagging like hell here. I like it here in the garden, seriously. 20 FPS on average. Looks fantastic. Every inch on this game is kind of cool. I'm not gonna lie. It's butchering the video card with maximum usage. Where's the usage? Seriously. 9.5 gig of VRAM and 86% load on the core of the GPU. And on the CPU side, I got some threads that are maxing out. That's the problem. It's not like other games that you can see 99%. That's the problem. Here it's 80%, 90%. Let's go into settings and activate DLSS, ultra performance. If I go around the castle, it will be even more system RAM. But you need to understand that this is kind of weird. Now with DLSS, we're getting like 35, 40 FPS on average, and this is the solution apparently. But I'm not gonna max out the details and use ray tracing at the same time with a system like this, because I will rather put some limit maybe to medium details in order to get appropriate FPS. And like previous game in God of War, I will use, instead of ultra performance, I will use balanced DLSS in order to get the right quality and the right performance. Potato. So today's question was this i7 7th gen, and the idea was that can I use this 2080 Ti in 4K with maximum details and use DLSS in order to get some playable FPS, and maybe distress the i7 in such a way that you don't notice the i7 it's old, you know, so you can get a cheap video card, because 2080 Ti is getting very appealing nowadays because it's got 11 gig of VRAM, you know. So 2080 Ti with this i7 7th gen, an interesting combination for 1080p, 1440p, 2K, or maybe 4K. The 4K was the maximum in order to see the, how should I say, the end of this question. On 4K, with maximum details, 2080 Ti was the problem in this situation. Do I want this combination? Yeah, it's freaking awesome, and I actually played a couple of games, and it's running really nice on with DisplayPort and HDMI, everything, because it's offered me 240 Hz for the monitor, and I'm having so much fun with this i7 7th gen, and I really like the performance. So if you enjoyed the benchmark, make sure you smash that like button, and leave a comment if you have any suggestion, because it will be very useful in the future. And if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe, and I will see you very soon.